Afternoon, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday. Good afternoon, Inez. How are you doing? Well, it's just
Good afternoon.
afternoon. How are you doing, Inez?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Very well indeed. And thank you for inviting me
Oh,
on your podcast or program.
it's what
It's
you call
really
it.
an honor.
Yeah, some people call it podcast, some people call it, whatever. But no, thank you so much for joining me. I feel as though we've kind of because we in terms of the circles that we sort of like have moved in theory, I think we've probably known each other for much longer or been in the orbits, right, for much longer. When
Absolutely.
I go back to my sort of my Adventist upbringing and the days when we used to sometimes visit Handsworth Road, SDA Church, right, when I was very, very little. All the way to now, kind of like getting to know you again through the Black Talent Awards. So it's been interesting, like sort of
It
reconnect.
has. And for me, it's been really exciting to see your career develop and what you're doing in the EDI space. So,
Yeah.
I'm just proud of the work that you do and what
Oh,
you're also doing with Denise. I think
yeah,
it's just amazing and I'm pleased to be
yeah.
part of it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. So, welcome, Inez. For those of you that don't know Inez, we almost haven't really got long enough to read Inez's bio. Right? But if you don't know Inez, please go and check Inez's bio out. Done some amazing things. So, obviously, solicitor by profession in the clinical negligence field, which is a minefield in itself, probably quite an interesting field actually, in the clinical negligence field. But you've done all sorts of things, have been the regional Institute of Directors chair for the Midlands region, are a past president of Birmingham Law Society, amongst other, won all sorts of awards. We're going to get into some of those things, all of those accolades. But no, it's so great to have you. But let's start at the top. In terms of some of the facts and figures, because we're going to talk today about the legal profession, which we know has its challenges in terms of inclusion and diversity. Then we're going to get onto governance, which is an area that you also specialise in, and then diversity. But let's start with some facts and figures about the diversity in the law profession, which we were just discussing, weren't we, before we came on air? Because at a headline, the stats kind of look as though they're moving in the right direction in terms of representation, whether that be, socioeconomic background, ethnicity, women, etc. But it's going at quite a slow pace, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. Are you going to share the stats or do you want
Yeah,
me
I
to?
think, well, at a headline level, in terms of like, say, even if we look at, say, like, for example, women, we've got we've still got the gap tends to be at the senior levels. So, only 32% of full equity partners, which is the most senior level, are women. So obviously that's nowhere near probably what we would expect. And then in terms of Black, Asian, and minority ethnic representation, it's gone from 14% in 2015 to 19% in 2023. So definitely improving. But I think you've got a bit more information on that, haven't you, in terms
Yeah,
of
yeah.
interviews?
So you're absolutely right that it's 19% of Black and ethnic minority, but only 12% of Blacks. And the turning point for this was in 2020, if you remember the murder of George Floyd. And
Yeah,
after that murder, you had many organisations saying, and in particular the legal sector, what can we do to bring
yeah,
about change and to attract more Black and ethnic minorities into the legal sector? And
yeah,
so it's creeping. It's
yeah,
creeping and it is moving in the right direction. And you've got a number of firms that are implementing change, but
yeah,
not enough.
yeah,
When you break that down even more, so you mentioned 30% of women are full equity.
yeah,
Very few Black people are full
yeah,
equity. I don't know the stats, but I do know that when you're looking at partners for Blacks, it's only 1%. So of
mm,
that Asian and Black stats, you would have 3% that are ethnic minority, and only
Yeah.
1% are blacks. And that's where we struggle in the legal profession. But we're
Mm,
going to talk about that in more detail when
mm,
we look at some of the struggles as far as EDI is concerned.
yeah,
But yeah,
absolutely.
it's
Yeah. And,
difficult.
and that's why it's so great to see, individuals like yourself in this profession, because, we know that this profession is problematic, and and not even just in terms of gender and ethnicity, but when we look at disability and socioeconomic background, and um, on all of those fronts, we know that this profession, for some reason, maybe why this profession is so difficult to crack, right, in terms of inclusion. So some people will kind of like look at you and think, oh my gosh, how did Inez even do it? How did you get to where you got to? How did you get into the legal profession, and how did you climb the ranks?
Okay, so I always knew from the age of 12 I wanted to be a solicitor.
Mm,
And I'm quite disciplined, determined, and if I want something, I have to visualize it.
mhm,
So I'd have these little miniature statues of judges and barristers along my window sill, and I'd watch all of the programs, Crown Court, LA Law, so I knew I wanted to do that. My mom encouraged me to become a legal secretary first, which honestly I didn't want to do, but I'm thankful that I listened to her, because she said the reason to access the profession that way initially was to develop organizational skills, people skills. Now, others have gone straight to studying their A levels, law degrees, and they still have those skills. But I can see why I needed it, because it now assists with what I do.
yeah,
And I remained a legal secretary for possibly about 13 to 15 years, because I bought a house, life took over, and always in the back of my mind, I still wanted to study law. So I studied law part-time while I was working full-time. And in 1999, I managed to secure a training contract, and that didn't come without its difficulties. And as a Black female in a predominantly white law firm, it came with challenges. But
mhm,
one thing that I've learned is, in order to achieve, you've got to try and find a way of navigating through these challenges
yeah,
and finding ways to overcome. And I did. And
yeah,
although some of the treatment was not the way that we should be treated, my parents always taught me to respect people, to stand up for justice, but do it in a tactful way so that you don't intimidate anyone, or so that's what I did.
mm,
And I'll tell you about some of the successes that
yeah,
I had later while I
yeah.
was in my first firm. I spent 11 years there, then moved to another firm.
And are you pleased that you went in that route, that you went in through like the legal secretarial route as opposed to like the degree route?
I'm actually pleased that I do, and I'll tell you the reason why. At the second firm that I went to, I was developing a clinical negligence team and
Mm,
building the team from scratch. So I was the only clinical negligence lawyer there. And it taught me, going through the legal secretarial route, the importance of reading documents properly, being able to type as well,
mm,
interacting with partners and people at senior levels, and understanding how private practice works. So for me, that was really good. I think had I gone in as a freshman into the legal sector,
yeah,
some of the um, resilience that I managed to build up over the years, I wouldn't have had. I
mm,
would not have had the confidence to do the things
yeah,
that I did as well. So it was good for me. I'm
yeah,
not saying it was good for everybody,
yeah,
but it was good for me.
yeah. And probably, I'm guessing as well, some of those like the people skills that you developed, while you were sort of like, working through the ranks, probably then helped you in your, when you were sort of training.
It did. And it was as a result of knowing a partner who was at another firm. He was able to, he didn't get me into the firm, but I was able to mention his name, and that made a difference.
Amazing, amazing. And then, so what was some of the some of the sort of like the triumphs and the successes that then, because then how did you end up in the IOD role, the Institute of Directors role? What was the journey to that?
Okay, so I need to tell you about my journey in the legal sector first,
Yeah.
and then I'll take you to the IOD. When I commit to something, I commit 100%. You're going to get
Yeah.
all of me and go all out. And that's the same for my profession. I wanted to be the best lawyer, not in a competitive way, but the best for my clients.
Yeah.
And so I made sure that I understood the clinical negligence arena, which I love, and it's a combination of medicine and law, and I'm interacting with consultants and barristers all the time to achieve a good outcome for my clients. And one of my cases in 2008, a client called me and told me that his father had died because a locum had arrived in the UK from Germany. He was a experienced plastic surgeon, but he came into the UK as a GP, a locum GP. His father, the illness that he had, his medication was 100 milligrams of pethidine and 10 milligrams of diamorphine. And what this doctor did, because he didn't understand the legal system and how the medication works, he reversed the dosage of the medication, and the father died instantly. And so the case went to an inquest in Cambridgeshire for 2 weeks. And at the end of it, the judge found that the locum did not have a good command of English, didn't understand the English medication system, looked at the way that out of hours and subcontracting and training, and as a result sent a recommendation to the Lord Chancellor, and the law was changed. So any locum that comes into the UK from any country, they have to have a good command of English, understand our medication system. And so that, I think I was on Channel 4, BBC News, Good Morning Britain, and I did the rounds then. As a result of that, someone nominated me for Partner of the Year for Birmingham Law Society, and I won, and I beat, I think it was about 5 male partners who are in the corporate sector. I then became the president of the Law Society for Birmingham, and that just didn't happen. It is so important to volunteer, to give back, to get involved in committees and associations in your sector, because networking is key, and you're going to meet people who will be able to help you along the way, and allyship for me is crucial. So I became the first Black president in 2010, and that was the first Black president in 202 years. And what I decided to do, because I knew it was difficult to access the legal profession, I wanted to set up a diversity inclusion scheme. So I approached 2 universities who provided scholarship for students of £20,000 each, but they also needed help on their journey. So I organised mentors with 2 law firms who would be with those students on their journey and help them with interview techniques, letter writing skills, presentation skills, etc. I also grew the membership of the Law Society during that time, and the Institute of Directors came knocking on my door and said, look, we've heard about the great work that you're doing. For us, the Institute of Directors, we consider ourselves as pale, male and stale, and we need someone who is going to change that. I thought I'd get the position because they approached me. No, I went through a rigorous and competitive interview, and again I was appointed, and so we're doing amazing work as far as governance, leadership and strategy is concerned. But that's how I was able to become the regional chair.
Amazing, honestly. And for people listening to it, some of the things that you've said in terms of like the networking and all of that, and not being afraid to put your head above the parapet, because sometimes we are a little bit fearful, but it's really important
It is.
to take those opportunities and develop those networks.
It would, and I wouldn't be where I am had I
Yes.
not got involved in the networking, putting my head above the parapet, and doing just that much more.
Yeah.
And I love people. If I had chance to tell you about my love for people and
Yeah.
helping people to progress, but we'll do that a different time.
Yeah. And the mentoring, the one thing that you mentioned there, the mentoring, which I know, I know even like with the Black Talent Awards, which you're a judge for, that's something we started doing last year with our youth judges is supporting them with mentoring. How important is it for you to still find the time to do that? And I know you are incredibly gracious with your time, but is that what would you say to people that maybe struggle to kind of find the time to do that mentoring and give back?
I think it's really, really important. And as long as we manage our time, and time
Mm.
management is something that I learned as a legal secretary as well, juggling so many balls at the same time. I wouldn't be where I am had it not been for white and black allies and also mentors. And mentors are able to help to shape you, to open doors for you, i.e., introducing you to contacts. And
Yes.
because so many people have helped me along the way, I'm not going to forget that kindness. And I think that as a black woman, it would be wrong of me to pull the ladder up just because I've succeeded. So I will help as many people as I
Mm.
can. I
Yes.
can't help everyone. And if
Yeah.
I can't help everyone, I then recommend others. My husband calls me Duracell because he said, you just seem to go on and on. But it is really about time management. And then I'm probably going to spend an hour with my mentor. So I set aside that time and I work around, but I get such joy
Yeah.
from giving back and seeing how they develop their progression. It's just wonderful. And
Mm.
for me, that is the greatest reward for me to be able to help.
Absolutely. Yeah. The giving it back, the paying it forward, as we
Yeah.
sometimes say. Hi, Joy, who's joined us, has said Ines is doing amazing work. Absolutely. And also Emma, thank you for joining us as well, who said that she's incredibly inspired. It is very inspirational because I think particularly anybody that's anywhere near the law profession that knows what it's like, and then as you say with the Institute of Directors, um, these old organizations that are very established, very closed, very male, very I won't say stale.
Stale. They are. But they're changing. They're changing.
I feel as though I'm getting closer to that stale age demographic myself anyway. So,
I think when they're referring to the stale, though, it's that they're so set in their ways,
yeah,
their tradition,
yeah,
and it's good that they are beginning to
yeah,
diversify.
absolutely.
So yeah, I'm pleased with that.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to talk about the law profession and some of the challenges, or should we go on to like business and the contribution that businesses make?
I'll talk about the law profession
Yeah, let's
first,
do
and
that.
just
Yeah,
briefly.
yeah,
So I made a few notes, and I have to put my glasses on. Sorry.
fine.
So one of the challenges is access into the profession
Yeah,
for Black and ethnic minorities, and not just those underrepresented groups. You mentioned disability. You've got so many communities that are underrepresented, and for me, inclusion covers all.
yeah,
Um, and then when you do come into the profession, you get a number of Black and ethnic minorities. It's not so much the ethnic minorities that struggle,
yeah,
it's the Black lack of support and lack of supervision,
yeah,
lack of case allocation. And
mm,
so they come in and they go out because the retention is really, really quite small,
mm,
because they don't receive the support that they need. The microaggression with our hair. I remember if I wash my hair,
mm,
it will go quite curly, and it's big curly. And so sometimes I wear my hair big curly.
yeah,
And one of the partners said to me, "Why are you wearing your hair like that?" And I said, what do you mean? Like what? He said, that's like an afro. And I said, because I want to wear my hair like this. But when you decide that you're going to wear your hair with slick back, or you're going to have a quiff at the front, we don't question that. So, you know, let me be me and I will let you be you. So they
Yeah.
expect us to appearance in a particular way. And then you have the mental health and well-being. Because we don't get the support that we need, it affects our mental health, and we leave the profession and we go into another profession. So those are the difficulties in the legal sector, and I'm sure that it applies in other sectors. And I think that firms need to pay more attention to inclusion, to diversity. They could consider reverse mentoring. I think they need to understand cultures and the differences between cultures, but also that if they are diverse, they will attract diverse business. So I'm now going to move to the business sector, so I can tell you. So at the moment, I work closely with Aston University, and they've produced a report. It's the Centre for Ethnic Minority Entrepreneurs, and there's a professor called Mondaram, and he is collating all of the research behind Black and ethnic minority businesses, the lack of support and how they struggle. I was surprised to learn that currently Black and ethnic minority businesses contribute 25 billion to the economy, and a number of us are setting up our own businesses because we can't progress in the private world. And his report is also looking at how it could increase to 100 billion. And someone was telling me that they were speaking to a prominent business person. And they were talking about, you know, we should do this for the Black sector. It was, I'm not going to mention the this. And they said, well, why would we do that when there are no Black businesses within the West Midlands and they don't really contribute as much to the economy as their white counterparts or their ethnic minority counterparts? And so they invited them to an event to showcase Black business. And in that room, there were businesses that were turning over 1 million, 2 million, right up to 1 billion. And this prominent individual was so surprised that Black businesses are doing so well that she said, okay, we're going to look at setting up what you've suggested, and I think it will definitely work. As the regional chair for the Institute of Directors, for me, I'm not just looking at, you know, the multi-million-pound businesses. I'm focusing on startup, scale-ups and medium-sized businesses. I want to go in and help them with their corporate governance, because the reason why a lot of these businesses fail, they don't have the right structures in place. They don't get the investment that they need because they don't have the right structures in place, and they don't have the right leadership skills. They're entrepreneurs, but they're not leaders. They're the visionary of the business. So that's what I'm trying to focus on, and to help the businesses. And I love being in the legal sector and getting results for my clients, but I also love working in the business sector and raising the profile of what we do at the IOD.
It's so interesting that, because it is quite complementary, isn't it? And do you want to just, in terms of the governance, so from a governance perspective, do you want to just talk about what it is that you do for organisations in that space?
So what you have is these entrepreneurs. They will go out and they will come up with a real innovative idea for their business, and they are spending so much time on the business that they don't focus on their finances properly, and to ensure that they do not become insolvent. So what I advise them to do is to think about whether they want to set up a board of directors who will provide the oversight and the scrutiny, or an advisory board. So with the board of directors, it's they're legally binding. All of their actions are legally binding. Whereas with an advisory board, they could look at the business and advise them from an operational day-to-day basis. But the owner of the business is not legally bound to take their advice. I
Yeah.
also go in with to help them with leadership, so facilitating leadership workshop days, strategy days, because they're focusing on here and now, but they're not thinking about medium and long term. They're also not thinking about how they can disrupt the market that they're in and become leaders in that market. So I do exercises with them and get them to think about that. So
Yeah.
that's what I love doing. And next, I think it's Wednesday, I'm doing a workshop about governance and boards in particular. And I've got little games that I will play with the attendees. So that's what I do.
I love it because, sometimes people see governance as this kind of dry, sort of quite dry, boring topic, but it is critical, isn't it, to how businesses run? Absolutely important. Yeah, really important.
It is, and in particular compliance. So you can be fined by, the tax office, or for non-payment of VAT and various things. Are you making sure that your employees, the right employment processes are in place, so you can try and avoid a lawsuit? So it's all of those things to help the business to be sustainable.
Yeah.
And it is dry, but I love dry, and so I say to them, let me help you navigate through all of this, and I'll make it as interesting as possible for you, because it will mean that your business will grow.
Yeah, amazing. And you've achieved so many things in terms of, the different areas that you've worked in, the different, what's been your what's, if I was to say to you, what's been your favorite or your biggest achievement, your biggest award that really means the most to you? What would you say, just out of interest?
I think the biggest award for me, and I have achieved a lot, and I'm grateful, to those who have helped me along the way. I'm a Christian, and I have a very, very strong faith, so I'm grateful to God as well. But I think the biggest achievement for me actually was in 2021, when I won the Diversity Champion Awards for Birmingham Black Lawyers. And the reason I won it was for the work that I've done by way of social mobility, but also the mentoring and helping so many young people to achieve. I'll go back to when at the second firm that I went to, I was the only Black person there for quite some time. And I decided that I was going to bring in Black and ethnic minority young people into the firm. And I'm so pleased now, and I still keep in touch with them. There are 6 of them that are qualified lawyers or chartered legal execs, and they're promoted, they're associates, they're now looking at partnership. And to know that I was able to help someone along the way, for me, that is the greatest achievement. It really is about giving back, making the time to give back and help someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And you've got a mentoring request that's come through on the live, Joy, saying I'd love to be mentored by you, Inez. Yeah, I'm sure.
So, Cheryl, what I'll say, send through her details to me afterwards, and I'll connect with her. And if I can't do it, I will get her a mentor. So that's what we'll do.
Amazing. It's what it's all about. What because we're wrapping up now. What tips would you leave for, let's start with law firms. What would you say to law firms that need to make improvements in this area? What sort of things do they need to be doing? Let's start there first.
I think it's important that law firms don't just talk the talk to say that they are inclusive. And I'll give you an example. I was talking to a girl, and she was saying that when the Equality Act came out in 2010, she was the only Black person at the law firm, and they invited her to be part of the discussion, and they were saying how inclusive and diverse they were. But she had been the only Black trainee in the firm for, I think it was 50 years, and she was still the only Black solicitor. So she said to them, look, it's all well and good saying that we do this, but where are the examples? So I would say to law firms that they are missing out on some brilliant talent out there from the Black and ethnic minority backgrounds. Consider doing blind interviews, and blind applications, because as soon as they see a name, they think, oh no, and it goes in the bin. So I think it's really, really important. I think that when they are looking at their quotas for trainees and paralegals, that they should have a percentage, and it only needs to be a low percentage, where they consider socio-economic backgrounds and help them to access the profession. So I would say listen more, and not just talk, but actually deliver, do something for the business sector. And I think I've got this stat wrong, but I was told that for a number of startup and scale-ups, it only, I think it's 2% of Black and ethnic minority businesses that receive investment from banks. And that is shocking. But what's really good is the banks are beginning to listen. And I'm finding that the business community is far more progressive than the legal community. When you look at the innovation sectors, so many people from our backgrounds are in those sectors, but the banks are realizing actually we're missing out on an entire section of the community that we could invest in, but also investing means they'll tell other people and we'll make more profit. So they are beginning to listen. And for me, diversity and inclusion means that you will have diversity of thought. You'll have diversity of voice as well, but you will also grow your business because of the amount of diverse clients that you can attract. And people from our backgrounds, we watch, we observe, and if we see that one bank is helping our people, we will go with that bank, or we will go with that business, or we will go with that law firm. So if they want to grow their clientele, they need to be definitely more inclusive.
Absolutely. And also, in terms of attracting the talent, we know that particularly with younger generations, we know that they are absolutely looking for firms that are very serious about this. They're not wanting the firms that are just kind of talking the talk. They want to see the action, don't they?
Absolutely. And just on that point, I was invited to be part of the West Midlands Combined Authority Racial Equality Roundtable. They had that a couple of weeks ago, and they had a number of businesses, key businesses in the room. Andy Street was there as well, and he's such a supporter of Black and ethnic minority businesses and growth. And they were asking the question about talent, how can we attract? And a number of us said, why don't you start and open the door, attract this talent, make sure that they are upskilled so they receive the right support. And someone also said, don't just think about attracting talent, which is important and that must continue, but think about your supply chain. Is your supply chain representative and inclusive of Black and ethnic minority businesses so that they can get a foot through the door? And it's absolutely right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a perfect note for us to end on, Inez. I feel as though you've given so many gems here, and for anybody that's if you're watching live or if you're watching on the replay, just really listening to the story of the tips of how you've sort of made, I say like tips, but that these are real sort of strategies of how you've sort of navigated your career. It's amazing. So thank you so much, Inez, for joining us. If people want to connect with you and ask you about your services and whatever, where's the best place? Is it LinkedIn or are you somewhere else?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I connect with everybody. And I thank you for connecting with me, because the fact that you've taken the time to connect, so you can connect with me, send me a direct message. If you go on LinkedIn, you will see my contact details. I even give you my mobile number, so it's all there for you.
And it's very approachable. Okay, perfect. We're gonna leave it there. I'm gonna leave people to enjoy the weekend. You're getting lots of applause and lots of claps.
Thank you.
So we're gonna leave it there.
Bye bye.
Thanks for listening, everybody.